Shabbat Shalom. It is incredible, this opportunity that we have to be together on Shabbat, to think about how this week is so different from last week. Last week we were waiting for a storm to come in. The storm missed us again, Kanahora, and then we had 2 days of torrential rain, much more than we ever got from the storm. It's interesting how the world works. It's never the way that you would expect, and it gets put together in all kinds of different ways. And we are always challenged as we look at the reality that comes towards us to how do we take what comes towards us and how do we find those places of blessing and those places of sweetness and take them and turn them into blessings, acknowledging our world. In our Torah portion tonight, it's actually one of my favorite parts. It is the declaration of the 7 species of the land of Israel, and then one of the lines that is the basis for the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals. Ki Adonai Elohecha me'avicha el eretz tova, eretz nachalei mayim, v'ayinot v'tumot, yotzim b'vikag v'har eretz chita, v'sohara v'gefen, utnena v'rimon, eretz zvat shemen udvash. The Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and springs and fountains issuing from plain and hill, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and figs and pomegranates and land of olive trees and date honey. A land where you may eat without stint, where you will lack nothing. A land whose rocks are iron, from those hills you can mine copper. And this is the line that's the basis for the Birkat Hamazon. V'achalta, v'savata, v'erachta, et Adonai Elohecha al ha'aretz ha'tova asher natan lach. When you have eaten your fill, give thanks. When you eat and you're satisfied, give thanks to the Eternal One, your God, for the good land that God has given you. V'achalta, v'savata, v'erachta, et Adonai Elohecha al ha'aretz ha'tova asher natan lach. It is just a simple line and so powerful with its instructions to us. Eat, be full, and appreciate. And it's such an incredible demand. It's such an incredible responsibility, not just to fill ourselves up and not just to eat, but to eat, to feel the satisfaction of eating, and then to bless. A number of years ago, I think I might have even been a teenager or a student teacher, my dad shared with me a book called Why Be Different. It's just a book, it's a religious school book, and it has all of these incredible stories in it. And one of them that I always tell when I get to this Torah portion, Parshat Akev, when we have this achalta, savata, uverachta, that we eat and we're satisfied and we fill, it's a story of an ambassador who's coming, and I think in the book it's from France. And he arrives in DC and he's picked up the airport and the people from the State Department and they're ready to take him to the residence. And he says, no, I'm hungry. Is there a place where we can go get some food? And they're like, yes, we've got this amazing restaurant. We'll see if we can get you in. So they take him and they explain, here's the French ambassador. He's so excited to be visiting this country, first time coming to the United States. We wanted to give him food. And so he comes and he sits in the restaurant, he and his wife, and they have this magnificent food. And he says, you know what? This is so good. This is so incredible. I want to thank the chef. We have eaten. It was incredible. Can we thank the chef? So they send word back on the night starting to get late, and they hear they have to wait for the restaurant to close because once the restaurant's closed, then the chef will be able to come out. So they wait, starting to get later and later. They're all a little tired, but you know what? This has gotten to be a little bit of an adventure. They didn't expect the restaurant. They didn't expect the chef. And all of this. So they wait and then the chef comes out and it's getting later. It's starting the wee hours of the morning. And the chef comes out and says, oh, thank you so much, as they're saying this is the best and most incredible food we could ever imagine. Thank you so much for making us this meal. He says, I appreciate it. I work hard on my craft. But in truth, I really need to tell you that it's not just what I'm able to cook for you. We have the most amazing market. where my staff is able to go every day, and we get the most incredible produce, we get the most incredible resources. Without the fresh food, we wouldn't be able to make the meal. And so if you really want to have an adventure, I understand this is your first day here, you've said thank you to me, let's convoy it up, we're gonna go to the market. You need to tell the people that we get the food from, that in fact how appreciative you are, because if you want to thank me, you gotta thank them. So they pile on, they got the convoy, and they go through the streets, and they get to the market, and of course there it's getting later and later, or earlier and earlier, and they find the market's just starting to get open and starting to get going, and they go up to the stall. This is his favorite stall, where he gets the most incredible basil and cilantro and greens and all kinds of incredible things that he gets to share in his restaurant, and they're thanking the person who runs the stall. And the person who runs the stall says, I appreciate it. I work really hard to make sure that what we have is fresh and gets out to the people, like this chef who shares it in such beautiful ways with our country, with our community. But if you really want to thank me, I'm just the middleman. The person you really want to thank is the farmer, because I get all of my stuff directly from some of our farmers here, right here in this area, and they work so hard to get me the best and finest quality produce. They work to make their land sustainable. They work to have without pesticides, and they just get it so rich, so full of flavor, and so fresh that when I share it with the restaurant, all we hear are these rave reviews. And so they pile back into the convoy, and they get back into the cars. And now they're starting again, and it's now passing the wee hours into the beginning of this new day, and the sun's coming up, and the roosters are crowing as they pull up. And there they pull up, and the window is open, and they're starting to see that the farmer and his family are starting to stir. And they walk up, and of course it has to be a Jewish farmer. And what do they hear the family offering in the midst as they're sitting down for breakfast? It is not creepy, I assure you. When you tell the story, don't worry, it doesn't appear creepy when the ambassador and the ambassador's wife and the person from the State Department and the chef and the guy from the stall are standing outside the window of this family on the farm. It's not the point. What's the point? What are they saying? They are saying, and in the Jewish version, of course, they're saying Hamotze. Thank you, God, creator of who brings forth bread from the earth. They are saying grace. They are saying, here we are, farmers. We get to have this food, but we couldn't have the food. We couldn't have these vegetables. We couldn't have this produce that we then share into our community without our connection with God, without the blessings that we have. And so it's this incredible story where we go full circle, going from the meal to the chef, to the market, to the farmer, and the farmer even saying thank you to God, realizing all of these different incredible steps. Achalta, savata, verachta. We eat, we're satisfied, and we bless. And I say that there's the shot, the very simple, that with the next set of meals that you have, slow down a little bit, really taste the food, appreciate the food, think about where the food comes from, all of the time and energy people have offered to be able to put that food in front of you so that we can eat it and that we can enjoy it. Achalta v'savata verachta. We should eat, we should be satisfied, and we should praise. That's just the pshat. That is just the simple level. Because we know that in our world, in our day and age, how important food tradition and how much important food culture is. And one of the things that is such a challenge is that, in fact, we can eat plenty of meals, but one of the things that brings us incredible joy and is an important part of eating and blessing is our ability to eat our meals together, to be able to sit down with family and friends and talk and visit. And that is part of the achalta v'savata uverachta, when we get to sit down with family and friends and eat that meal and be with each other. Every Friday night, I'm sitting in this empty room. I have this challah, and it is not the same when you don't get to share it with people. And this is not a singular challenge. It's not a Jewish challenge. It is a challenge that is very much part and parcel of this COVID-19 pandemic experience. I hear it over and over and over again. In fact, if you've been listening to NPR, you might have heard of the story of Pascal Simon. She is a chef in Austin, Texas. And she had been doing a cooking class for kids in person before COVID. And then COVID struck. And she was not computer savvy. She didn't know a whole lot about Zoom, but she started to get requests. And so what did she do? She figured out Zoom and she figured out the computer and she started offering online baking classes. Now, before COVID-19, very interesting, very incredible. She was making cupcakes and Pop-Tarts and all kinds. In fact, her summer camp was called Cupcake Camp. But as she started to do these Zoom lessons, she started to ask herself, do we just need more sweet treats? Do we just need cookies and cakes and cupcakes and Pop-Tarts? She started to do something a little different. She started, and by the way, instead of just kids in Austin, she has kids like we have from California to Canada here at services. She started to have kids from all over the country and even from Canada, all over, start to join this class. She started focusing on dinner and getting knives and hot pans and food handling, and all of these different skills. She started to teach this incredible piece of both creativity and discovery, creativity and courage, because she said, I know the paradigm has changed, so how do I change the paradigm? If we can't all be cooking in a room together, how do we find a way using our technology to be in a virtual room together, but also how do we change the way we're cooking? And she did that. She started making real meals. And what she found was something interesting. Not only did she give these kids incredible confidence, did she give these children, these young people, I think the youngest is 8 and they go up into the teens, these skills for making these meals. And there's everything. They were making tortillas and they're making all kinds of soups. They're making all of this incredible stuff, but she actually challenged the kids. And she said, you know what, you guys are learning to cook. Maybe you should cook for your families. And what she has found is in the midst of them all cooking together on Zoom, talking with each other, chatting. If you listen to the audio, and it's on NPR, and I think I just put it in NPR, I searched under NPR after I heard it on the radio, NPR Austin Kids Chef. You can listen to the story and hear these kids asking these questions and hearing her explain. What eventually has happened is kids have started to make dinner for their family and their parents. And their parents are coming home from the office or coming out of their home office, and dinner is ready and the dishes are done, and the whole sense of community and the whole sense of family that has been so shaken, it's not restored, it's not back, but something different has happened. It has been renewed. It has been reimagined. That ruach and koach of sitting with family and friends, that energy has been reinvested in incredible ways and created something beautiful with those families. Now this, you could say it's just an American, that of course is what we do, but it's also very much a Jewish experience too. And this, in the midst of our Torah portion, not just in this Torah portion, but in this time of Deuteronomy, the people of Israel are about to go through a complete change of paradigm, very much like we are going through a complete change of paradigm. We have COVID-19, we have the stay-at-home orders and mask wearing and social distancing and all of that. For them, they were going out of the wilderness, where they were marching across these large open spaces, this mixed multitude of hundreds of thousands. And what were they eating? When they get this instruction, achalta v'savata uverachta, of eat and be satisfied and blessed, they are eating manna. God brings it each day. They go out, they harvest, and then they have their meal. Every day, except for Shabbos, because on Friday they get their double portion, so they don't have to harvest on Shabbat. Well, when they cross the Jordan, the paradigm shifts. And they, instead of being able to harvest manna, they have to do something completely different. They are then responsible for their own agriculture and their own animals. They have to grow the food and prepare the food and create the food themselves. And it's into that. They go from being able to have it writing at their fingertips to suddenly all of this labor and work and energy going into it. And think about the paradox of that. When the work gets harder, when they have to put more investment in it in order to eat, that's when God says, Achalta v'savato verachta. Even though you have to put more energy in that moment when you might need to be challenged more, to stop and to eat and to be satisfied and to bless. They had, as their paradigm for eating completely changed, they had to think about all of these ways that they can continue to keep the ruach and koach, the spirit and strength, the sense of value. How do we appreciate the food that we have, understanding that there is something transcendent and beyond us that helps make sure we have this food, that we are able to eat it. So on this Shabbat, as I think about Pascal Simone and her students, as I think about our ancestors, that is what we are challenged to do. We're not just going to go back. It's not just going to end, and we're not just going to be able to go back to the way things were. We have at least months of staying in this state where we are physically distanced from each other, and can we, with creativity and courage, not just go back to what we had, but find new ways to put that smile on each other's face, to be able to achalta v'savato verachta, and not just food, not just eat our food and be satisfied and to bless, but truly with everything we have. In our relationships, with our work, with our errands, that we eat it up, that we are satisfied by these incredible experiences of life. And then even in the midst of running around and taking care of these tasks, that we stop and we are appreciative of the blessings we have. I share that with you on this Shabbat, for that sense that we need creativity, that we need courage to find our way to recreate, to renew, to reimagine, because if we do that, we will create something that is holy and transcendent and powerful for us and for the world around us. I share that with you, that challenge of v'chalta v'savata uverachta in our day and age, and I do it with an extra request. Here we are in August, we are starting our countdown towards the High Holy Days, and this is going to be a very, very different High Holy Days. Most of our services are going to be virtual. Some of the content is going to be recorded. We are going to add study sessions and a drive-through shofar blowing and a tashlich experience at Riverside Park. We're going to do things that, even though we are going to be physically different, there is going to be other opportunities for us to engage in our Jewish tradition. But we are going to need your help to prepare for it. We're not going to have our regular honors in our services. We can't call people up to the bima as we do every year, which is such an incredible part of our service. However, you do have an opportunity, each and every one of you, to participate in an incredible way, because we're recreating and reimagining and renewing our sense of these high holy days, these days of awe. Later in the week, I am going to, and I'm going to actually pull up a slide to share with you. We are going to share through an email these questions with you. A blessing of sweetness I offer for this coming year. The most awesome part of the High Holy Days for me. My favorite prayer on the High Holidays, and a favorite memory from the High Holy Days in the past. You see these 4 questions. These are not rhetorical. These are actually questions that we are hoping to get answers for. Our hope, our dream, our vision of the month of Elul, the month that starts at the end of August and will lead us up to the High Holy Days, is that you, our members of our congregation, will take a few minutes looking at these different answers. And whether you record a video or you set a time with Cantor or myself or some of our different volunteers to be on a Zoom call and record your answers, to create short little videos, just a couple of minutes of answering one or more of these questions. And that it is our hope, using the technology of our day, that each day we will be able to play 1 or 2 or 3 of these different videos, to be able to make them available to our congregation, so that each of us, like those students of Chef Simone, to be able to share, each in our own way, even from physically distant, to be able to reach out to one another, to begin to give that spark of energy that we all need for those days of awe. As I said, there will be an email with a little bit more instruction, but I ask you to think about doing it, to have courage, to be creative, just like those kids that are saying, I don't know how to use a knife, and they learned how to use a knife. I don't know how to use the oven. They're learning to use the oven. They are not just learning to cook, but then being able to offer that food to their families. Let us think of those ways to stretch ourselves with creativity and courage, to do things and answer things and think about things in a way we never had, and then find ways of taking what we create and giving it to our congregation so that we can all be lifted to a place that is high and holy. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.